Raj in the house. How are you,
Big
sir?
Raj, Big Raj. What's going on, Herb? How you doing?
I am good, sir. I am good. Sorry, checking some last minute messages. Not that you aren't important, Raj, but my messages are still way more important. So sorry.
I got you. I got you. I'll always play second fiddle.
You don't even like that second fiddle. Like when I said that, you were just you thought it was preposterous that I would even use such a word, and now you're like all good with it. Come on, no
Okay.
way.
Okay.
All right,
Don't tell that
so
little taradiddle.
oh, you like that one, sir. So first
Yeah.
off, you want to know what's really a terrible statement. The dog and pony. First off, you guys do it great. You were the first. You do it better than anyone. Had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Was that last week already? Jeez, it feels like time flies. But on Randy's show and Randy with Joe and Chris Hayes was there. Like great show.
I hate that I missed
A
that.
lot of knowledge. Yes, it was awesome. So I don't know that we can do it justice. We're gonna give it our best tonight. So got some
Oh
roll
yeah.
tides
Oh
in
yeah.
there. Yes, we are trying to
Roll
get to
Tide cat.
200. So please help us
Yes.
out there. So what's up, Lady Alpha? Good evening. How are
Lady
you?
Alpha.
And our boys are the way offsides, one of the
Way
fastest
offsides.
growing Bama groups, man. Those guys are great, have been a
Yeah.
great
Huge
cause and
huge
helped
shout out
us
to
too. So
yeah, huge shout out to them, man. I just like the way, and Herb and I have talked about it, I just like the way that they kind of approached the whole social media game. They established themselves on social media before even doing a podcast or anything like any live events, and they built up a following there. Now they're doing live things throughout the week. So big shout out to Way Offsides crew, all of them. Love their stuff.
good. Is that you, Rod? Roll Tide, everybody.
Uh,
And yes,
no.
be safe over there, Cat. Hope it's
Oh
all
yeah.
right. All right, let's get to the guests. So tonight is our SEC preview. We say an SEC because there will be Alabama will be next week, but we are going to talk a little Alabama with these guys before we kind of get into our breaking down the teams and how we think everybody's going to do this year. So first up, Raj, good
Yes.
friend of yours. He is in line to replace Triple H as one of the head writers for WWE. Yeah, he's
Okay. I can see that.
yep,
I can see that.
yep. Time Magazine just recently named him one of the best top 5 mics of all time.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess
And
that's
I
two
don't
for
know if you
two.
knew this one, Raj, but there's a DNA test out there right now. He may be the third Ragsdale brother. So we'll find that out later. Two
That
truths and a
one
lie.
might be questionable, but
What's up, Big Mike? How are you doing tonight, sir?
what's going on,
What's going
Mike?
on, gentlemen? What's going on? I guess with the whole two truths and a lie, I guess since I'm now on screen and you can see me, we all know at least which one is the lie.
I'm not.
I mean, I feel it in here, so I'm not debating that part.
That's all. That's all that
But
matters, Mike. As long as it's
one
in your
of these
heart.
things is one of these things is not like the other.
Are you saying because
It's
your
okay.
hat is a different color? I get
Yes,
it.
that's exactly it. Yeah, because it's the whole gray hat versus yeah. That's all.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Understandable. Understandable. All right, Raj. Then the next person coming up, Raj.
Okay.
There's about to be one of those Netflix series about Saban's life. He is set to play Saban in the show.
I could definitely see that.
Yep. He's been named one of the top 5 most influential people in Alabama recently,
Okay.
and
2 for 2.
they're set to name one of the sections in the stadium after him. Welcome to the stage, Bam B. How are you
Wow.
doing tonight, sir?
Kudos to Bama B, man.
I think you got yourself muted still. Is that all right?
Sorry about that.
There we go. No, you're good.
No problem. No problem.
Never live up to these introductions.
Oh, Mike gave us a shout out the other day, said it's one of the best in the biz. So I just tell the
Yeah.
truth. I just look
He
up the
does.
guys' lives. I find nuggets and stuff like that.
It's all out there on Google, so we know everything. Yeah.
Yeah, we know everything. So, how are you doing tonight, sir?
I'm good. How are y'all?
Pretty good. Pretty good.
Yes. I spend my day in an attic,
Aren't we?
so I'm a little out of it. Yeah, I don't know if we're good or not. Okay. So Mike is always
Okay.
good. So we appreciate that. So,
Yeah.
We are going to talk about SEC, and the way we did divide up the SEC. Everybody got 4 teams. So we're going to talk about them. Some of them are just going to throw their schedule up on the screen and just say, hey, that's, here's their record. Let's move on. Some of them will go game by game and kind of break it down and see. Alabama's not on the schedule for that. Colorado is, as a shout out to Mike. So Mike is going to
additional SEC powerhouse, Colorado.
Yes, you never know. But we did want to start. Remember, it's been a minute since we caught up with you. We even talked about earlier this summer. We thought it'd be a little quiet, and then all of a sudden, it's kind of just been all over the place. So, before we get specific, what are your overall thoughts on how this summer has gone for Alabama?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's gone probably about as well as you could hope for. Especially on the recruiting trail. Alabama's made some noise there. That was a big question when Kalen DeBoer was hired. Could he recruit the South and recruit at a high level as Saban's staff did, and he's demonstrated he can do that. You've had a few flips here in the last couple of weeks to some rival schools, but that's recruiting. That's going to happen for any staff, any school. So I think everything's been great on the recruiting front. It sounds like the first few weeks of fall practice have gone really well. Calling back to the 8A game, I'm not sure we could gain too much knowledge from that scrimmage that we all watch, but there were some good things to be seen there. So all in all, I mean, as far as a transition from the greatest coach of all time, I mean, I think it's been going as well as you could hope for.
Yeah, I didn't really want to remember that 8A game. That was
interesting. Interesting to say the least.
Is that what you're going with, Raj?
Yeah.
Oh, and I really saw what Courtney Morgan got paid. That seems like a huge. I know that I guess there was some rumbling was USC on the radar and maybe some others, but Courtney Morgan got his money. Did you have a hand in that, and how big is that for Alabama?
No hand in that on my end, but it's a great move. I think he was offered, like president or director of football operations out at USC. So it was a proactive move by the university to go ahead and lock him down for the next couple of years. He's a key piece, huge piece to what Alabama's been doing so far. And I think you're going to start seeing that around the country at different schools. These player personnel, general manager, coaches are going to become huge. Probably as big as the head coach.
Yeah. And my chance to answer the first question we had for him too. What have you kind of seen from Alabama this summer, and kind of where we're headed?
Yeah, I mean, kind of the same thing. I mean, as much as you mentioned, not enjoying A-Day as we were there. Everything after that has been everything's kind of gone up, especially since you started spring practice or summer practices and things like that, getting ready for the season. Pretty much everything you've heard has been positive. We got the official word, a few months back that Parker Brailsford, was definitely going to be here, was going to be, everything, all the personal issues he was dealing with are all done. So, definitely having that back to solidify that offensive line, which, we thought would be, one of the question marks. The receivers, everything we've heard, they've been really good in camp. So, that's always a good thing. I've heard a lot of good stuff about, the DBs just, on Twitter, things like that, they've been spoken really highly of, especially some of the younger guys, Mbakwe and those guys have been a really big highlight from what I've read. I don't have necessarily a lot of inside access, but it's big, it's exciting. I'm ready to see it. I'm ready to see it, live and on TV.
Rod, what's the text you send me about once a week now about how excited? And it's always the most random times.
But I try to send them at the most random times, but I'm just really excited for this season to start. It's been a long off season, and since January 10th, we all know what happened that day from today. It's been a pretty interesting and long and off season, and we're just I know we don't, but I'm just really, really excited to see what the team brings next weekend, and excited for the offense. Really, really curious. Yeah, I would say curious is the word as far as to see what the defense is going to look like. K1 Maxime defense. So overall, just excited. The anxiety is continuing to build up, and I'm just really looking forward to game one.
All right, Bam. We always do this every. Oh, go ahead. What?
Yeah. Quick question, Bama Beat. So over the summer and even up till today, are there any names that you continue to hear from as far as just really, really looking good in practice, or anybody standing out, or are there any names that are surprising you?
Ryan Williams, we continue to hear about him. That's not really a surprise. I think we all expected him to contribute early, but there's some chatter that he, could potentially, have a starting role, potentially in game one. Maybe not, we'll see, but I think he's going to play a major role early. We talked in the spring about Wilkin Formby at right tackle. That was kind of a under the radar guy that I thought, was worth watching. I don't think that right tackle battle with Elijah Pritchett is settled just yet, but I do think Formby has the upper hand there. And, he's a young player. He's only been at Alabama a year or two. So, I think, he's got a lot of potential. A name that I was really surprised to hear from this past Saturday's scrimmage was Rico Scott, the true freshman wide receiver. Had a couple touchdown catches in that scrimmage. Really wasn't expecting to hear too much about those other freshman wide receivers outside of Ryan Williams this early in camp. But it sounds like Alabama's building, at least some quality depth there at the wide receiver position. And, I do think Jamarcus Shepard and what he's brought to that room and just the quality of coach he is has really elevated that. We'll see when the season starts if it comes to fruition, but he's really elevated the room in the offseason.
Yeah, I like it.
Cool.
All right, we always do this, beginning of season, mid-season, end of season. So let's get some quick grades on where you think we stand going into the season. All right, quarterback room.
So I'll go B+. I expect Jalen Milroe to make a big jump this season. Everything I've heard out of, summer workouts, fall camp has been really positive. It sounds like he's growing more and more comfortable in Kalen DeBoer's offense. We talked at the end of last year. I think the next step for Milroe is, working through his progressions a little more efficiently, being able to see the whole field. It's a lot of decision-making stuff, even in the running game, being a little bit more committed there, making quicker decisions. So, I expect him to make a big jump there. I think they've got great depth in that room. I think it's one of the most talented quarterback rooms in the country. Ty Simpson is a great backup option. Somehow Alabama was able to keep him and Dylan Lonergan on campus. So that's really exciting. And then you've got Austin Mack, sitting back there, probably, again, a year or two away, but just a super deep quarterback room.
Yeah. Big Mike, do you believe the Heisman kind of low-key hype for Milroe? Is that something he can actually achieve?
I think so. When you look at the weapons around him, you've got two really good running backs and Justice and Jam back there that are going to be able to catch the ball out of the backfield, kind of make some good runs, spread, bring the defense in so he can hit some of those deep shots. Kind of what Bama Beat was saying, as long as he gets, a little better on that intermediate passing game with the talent we have and the shiftiness we will have at wide receiver, they're going to be able to help him out a lot, for those five and inside passes, maybe taking those a little bit longer, that maybe we didn't have last year because those intermediate passes weren't as crisp and weren't as accurate as they were last year. So I think, if he makes that step, because he's already got the deep ball and everything else and he's got the legs, he puts that together, I think he can definitely have a Heisman caliber season.
That's what Jaden Daniels did last year.
Yeah, Mike likes Milroe's legs. I want that to be a cut, an official quote.
Oh wow!
Sorry. Let's keep it going then. Running back room.
Yeah, so it's a little bit of an unproven running back room, but I think talented, very talented. Probably more more talented than the running back room the past couple of years. Under Saban, we kind of got in a pattern there where your senior running backs, your upperclassmen were probably going to be getting the bulk of the workload there. But, with, Jam Miller, Justice Haynes, I think they're going to be in great shape. So I'd probably give that room like an A-, just going into the season.
It's interesting that we have a returning quarterback and they get a B+, and an unproven room, but they get an A-. Not that I disagree, but if I was on the outside looking in, I'd be. But having watched the 8A game and watched them, I actually agree with that grading. But it is interesting, I think.
Yeah. Well, I do think quarterback's a little bit more nuanced position. You're asking a little bit more from your guy there. So Milroe, we've talked about the added development that's needed there. I feel like Jam Miller, Justice Haynes, they're going to be prepared to step in and do what's needed there. And I think DeBoer will probably involve them in some other aspects of the offense that maybe we haven't utilized as well over the past few seasons.
Right. And to Mike's point, then that obviously all helps Milroe out. So I do like, and that was a good answer, Mike. I know I was joking about it, but it was a good answer. But I thought you incorporated them very well in that. All right, the wide receiver.
Well, and also too, I'm sorry, just a quick point. I mean, you also have to look at it. So the quarterback has more room to grow. He needs to make more strides, even with an unproven running back room, than maybe the running backs did, because they did have some flashes last year. Showing that they're going to be well. And like you said, with it being a nuanced position, I just think he has that much more to grow. So I'd definitely be spot on with the grades as well.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Wide receiver room.
So I'll go a B at this position. I think they've got some really good talent. I think this is a position we could look back at the end of the season and say, hey, we underrated that group going into the season. But, it is, unproven. Again, we don't have any returning production there really that you can definitely count on. Jeremy Bernard, the transfer wide receiver from Washington, I like him a lot. He showed some pretty nice things in the 8A game, so I kind of expect he's going to be your first option, at least early on. He's kind of been the one constant through all the lineups that we've heard about it, practice and scrimmages and such. Ryan Williams is there. We already talked about him, talented true freshman, Caleb Odom. And then you've got some guys that have been around like Kendrick Law, Kobe Prentice, Emmanuel Henderson. Which of those guys can make that jump and become part of the, receiving core on a regular basis? Cole Adams is another guy I've heard some good things about in fall camp. That's a guy you could probably put in the, surprise category for me as far as, just some of the buzz we've heard so far. So, you got a good mix there of newcomers and some returning guys that haven't quite proven themselves yet. So I'm excited about the group, but again, they're unproven. So that probably is a good spot to settle in at a B.
Okay. And Raj, something you and I have talked about, Raj, if you want to jump in on that, is we both kind of felt like they just didn't get as many opportunities last year.
Yeah. I feel like the grade of a B as far as the wide receiver is an accurate grade. And to your point, it's all going to come down to whether or not they're utilized well enough throughout the season. And that's all going to come down to what Milroe does with the ball. And to Mike's point earlier, I'm more interested to see what he can do with those 10 to 15 yard passes as opposed to the deep ball that we know he can throw. So if he can kind of spread the ball around and then use his running back room really, really well, then obviously we're going to have talented wide receivers. If you look at the roster, they're all there. He's got all the weapons he needs to have a really, really successful season. I don't see why this offense can't average, I don't know if this is a stretch, around 40 to 45 a game. That's just my guess. When you look at some of our competition, obviously the games like the Georgia, LSU, Tennessee might go up and down, but the roster's there. This could be a real nice Heisman season for Milroe. We know what he can do on the ground. It's time to elevate his game from the passing perspective. And, I think it can be done.
Okay. All right. What about an O-line grade?
I'm high on the potential of this O-line. I think it could be a really good group by the end of the season. But, I feel like we've been saying that for a couple of years now. So I don't want to get burned again. But
right.
I'd probably be somewhere around, like a B plus, because I am high on the potential of the O-line, but until they prove it on the field, I'm kind of in wait and see mode. Getting Caden Proctor back was huge. We talked about, I think the last time I was on, just how those two tackle positions being, an unknown was going to be, a potential question mark for this team. And, now you've got a guy who got better as the season went along last year. I think we all know he's got super high potential, extremely talented. So he settles in at that left tackle spot. The interior should be excellent. Probably one of the best interior lines in the country. We talked about Parker Brailsford coming in at center from Washington. Definitely need some, better performance at that position this year. Jaden Roberts and Tyler Booker are probably, two of the best guards in the entire country. Jaden Roberts has a little injury issue going on right now with his hand, but, expect him to be be back to start the season. So really, you're looking at that right tackle spot as kind of the biggest question mark on the O-line right now. Like I said, I'm a big fan of Wilkin Formby. I think he's going to settle in there and eventually be your starter there. But Elijah Pritchett's a very talented player, probably a higher ceiling than Formby. But I think Alabama's got two good options at right tackle, and if they can just figure that out, they've got a few games to start the season, against Western Kentucky, South Florida, to kind of get settled in there, maybe figure out what they want to do there. I think this O-line has the potential to be really good.
Gotcha.
Raj,
Good with the
what do you
offense?
think of those? Yep.
Yeah, same grading system. Let's flip it over to the defense. What would you say about our defensive line?
This is another position I'm high on, but I want to see the production there, and I want to see the performance before I turn into a believer. Now, Alabama's really deep at the defensive line position, in my opinion, in terms of numbers. I've heard Kane Womack thinks it's maybe the deepest position on the team, at least on his defense, as far as the numbers they've got. I think a big key for Alabama this season on the defensive line is keeping Jaheim Otis healthy. He was banged up all last year. He's a guy that I think can really be one of the top interior D linemen in the SEC if he can stay healthy. You've got Tim Smith, Jamarian Latham, Tim Keenan, some guys who have contributed, at a solid level, but haven't really, I would say, blossomed quite yet. So you're looking for them to maybe make the next step. And you've got some younger guys in that room, James Smith, Edric Hill, Renaud. So there's some guys in there that are really talented that could maybe elevate that group over what we've seen thus far. But I'm probably at a B for that group going into the season. Again, high on their potential, but I want to see the results on the field.
Linebackers.
I think you could almost grade these two positions separately, because I feel really good about the inside linebackers. With Jihad Campbell and Deontay Lawson, those are two guys that have a lot of experience, especially Lawson. So you feel like they're going to be solid for the group. Kane Womack has talked highly of Justin Jefferson, a super talented player that came out of junior college. Last year was his first year with the team. So usually you see those junior college players maybe take a year to settle in. Kane Womack said he feels like he's another starter at that position. The outside linebacker room is a little more unproven. You're replacing two of the best pass rushers that Alabama's had in the last several seasons with Dallas Turner and Chris Braswell. They made a lot of plays for Alabama the last few years, and you're going to be replacing with Quay Robinson, Keanu Coote, Quay Russaw is a young player. He was a 5-star out of high school. So he's a guy that I think they expect to play. Yanze Pierre is another option there. So I'd say on the whole, with the linebacker group, between the experience and talent you have inside and the inexperience and talent you have on the outside, that's probably another group where I'm probably around a B.
Okay.
Gotcha. Before we move on to the DBs, and I'm not sure if you just mentioned his name or not, but Keon Keeley, have you been hearing anything about him as of late?
Yeah, so Keon Keeley is, he's making the transition to defensive line. He's played outside linebacker in Saban's scheme. Under DeBoer, they have moved him to the defensive line with the change in scheme. I think that's a good move for him, especially, with the new scheme. But there's going to be an adjustment period for him in playing defensive line versus outside linebacker. So I think he's trying to, still settle in there. He's a guy that I'm hoping maybe, by midseason, end of the season, starts emerging, especially on pass rushing downs. I think that would be the easiest role for him to step into early is pass rushing downs. So, I think he has a lot of potential, but, with that position change, he's kind of maybe not starting back at square one, but he's a little bit behind the other guys as far as, learning the position and getting settled in there.
Gotcha.
Hey,
And last but not least,
Chris?
Shout out to Chris Hayes.
Here,
We appreciate you for jumping on.
Breakdowns, man. Yeah, so we were on Randy's show last Randy, two Georgia Bulldogs in the chat, so don't be surprised they start ganging up on us a little bit. Nah, love both
That's
those
fine.
guys. And I was on
Yeah.
their show last week, man. Had a blast. Would definitely do it again. And definitely gonna have to do something around the Georgia game for sure. All right,
Yeah.
go ahead, Raj. Sorry about
Of
that.
course. No, you're good. You're good. And last but not least, the DBs. What are our DBs looking like this year, or so far?
Yeah, so I'd probably grade them around a B minus. I think you've got some good experience at the safety position. Malachi Moore makes the move back to safety. I'm interested to see how that works out. I've always liked Malachi Moore playing closer to the line of scrimmage. So I think it'll be interesting to see him in the back end. How does he fit in there? You got Keon Sabb comes in from Michigan. Played really well at the end of last year. I think he's potentially a great player for Alabama. So I feel pretty good about those safety spots. Devontae Smith is another option at safety or the Husky position. You got true freshman Red Morgan's also factoring in at that Husky position. I think corner is really, the biggest question mark on this football team. Damani Jackson transfers in from USC. We all remember super, super talented recruit, highly rated. But how much development did he really get with Lincoln Riley at USC? Yeah. So, I'd feel better with him if he was our number 2 corner rather than our number 1 corner. But hopefully he can settle in there. And then the biggest battle right now, I think, is who gets that second boundary corner spot. Is it Zabian Brown, the true freshman from Mater Dei out of California, or is it the Wake Forest transfer Deshaun Jones? I kind of think we may see Deshaun Jones early just because he's got some experience at the college level. But Zabian Brown's probably the more talented player. So do they work him in, maybe with Deshaun Jones in a rotation early on? Getting those 2 corner spots settled is probably, like I said, the biggest question mark on this team. So I think B minus, high on their potential again. Kind of like it's kind of a theme with the defense, high on its potential, but until we see, the results on the field and how everybody's ingratiated into this new scheme, we're kind of just guessing.
Gotcha. New person popping in, Mr. U. That Monday thing is officially becoming that Thursday thing, starting this Thursday, 6 p.m. Central. So, Raj, you can no longer get royalties from the name. I'm sorry.
I know.
And also co-hosting with Big Mike. Where we now the Thursday night tag team?
Yep. Yeah. Since we have gone to a 4-man panel, we obviously transitioned out of the Thursday night triple threat and into the Thursday night tag team. Same great content, same great show, just a little bit of a new name.
Yep. Mike, since this is awesome. Your co-host, you want to tackle this one first outside of the Georgia game? What's the matchup you have some concerns about?
Excuse me.
I mean, really, the first couple, obviously you've got the easy one, and then you've got the Wisconsin game was week 2. I don't have it pulled up. I should probably know it. Or week 3. I mean, just with that being the first big test, I think that one probably concerns me the most, just because we don't know until then. Obviously, you've got some big games. Obviously, Auburn's always iffy. I won't go over the whole thing, but really, right now, today, I would say that Wisconsin game is probably the biggest concern right now, just because it's an unknown.
My answer, I think, would end up being like the LSU and Tennessee games, just because they're on the road. So those were a couple others I would go with. So
that my answer was Tennessee too. I don't know how good of a quarterback Nico's going to be, and obviously we didn't see him, but he had that one game against that dominating Iowa team in the bowl game last year. So I just don't know how good he's going to be. I don't know how he's going to develop over the season. So that's just one that I'm kind of concerned about. And obviously the LSU for the obvious reasons too. We're night game in Death Valley. That could go either way, but I see us prevailing in that one.
Yeah, I agree with all the games mentioned. I will say this about that Tennessee game, and not saying that's not going to be a tough game on the road, but I do think Alabama's defensive scheme change is much better suited to defend that Tennessee offense, with more of a zone-based scheme that doesn't rely on pattern matching. I think, we're going to be in much better position to defend that Tennessee offense. Now they're going to, I think Nico's a super talented player, and Josh Heupel, does a lot of things creatively, offensively. But I do think, that is one added benefit of the scheme change is against teams like Tennessee. I think we're going to be much better positioned.
Sounds good. I like it. And
that makes me feel better already.
Yep. And that's one reason why I want to go to Wisconsin is because we don't have that much history against them. And I don't know when we'll see that again. All right, let's start to get into our teams. All right.
All right.
Let's try to figure out what order to go in. We're just going to I went to Vegas Insider and took their odds on to win the SEC. So we're just going to go from the bottom to the top. The way we did it, everybody got to break down all of their we got to pick. We did a little round robin and we got to pick all their teams. So you'll see us all. The teams will come up. That person will give us their record. If anybody has any questions for them, that's fine. Otherwise, we'll move on. So, and yes, Chris, man, we're doing amazing today. I was stuck in an attic for a couple of days, so I'm a little bit off. So that's why these guys are really having to carry the team. I miss you, Mizzou. Mizzou. Well, I mean, I'm the older bro. That's what I get to do. Mizzou's at home, so I'm not as worried about it, and I'm not at that high in Oklahoma. So that's my answer to it. But
I will say, I think that
to name teams, that's like 5 teams we're going to name outside of Georgia. So we might as well say we're upset at the whole schedule. I'm sorry, man. What you got?
Sorry, one thought on that Oklahoma game. I don't like where that sits on the schedule the week before the Iron Bowl, an away game. I think Oklahoma under Venables has been a pretty physical team. So I would say that is a game that I'm watching closely, as the season goes along to see how Oklahoma performs. Because like I said, I don't like where that sits on the schedule.
Not high. Yep. You can take it down, write a picture. Here's your screenshot. O'Brien will be.
Brian, you know how we feel about this game.
The loser has to buy drinks that night. So bring it on. Which I believe you said you were that high in Alabama one of these weeks too, so we didn't take it personal much.
Yeah.
All right, let's start off at the very bottom and work our way up. Vandy up first. Rod.
You didn't have to tell everybody that was one of my teams, but anyway. All right. I mean, there's really a lot to say here. Last year, Vandy was like 2-10. I gave them one extra win this season. I have them going 3-9. Their wins are going to be against Alcorn State, Georgia State, and Ball State. That's basically all the state teams. I love to sit here and go into depth into Vanderbilt, but I'm really not going to do that tonight due to time and just due to I just don't feel like doing that. I have Vanderbilt going 3-9.
The disrespect for
no, Vanderbilt will not make the playoff.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Mississippi State was me up next. I think I got them to 5 wins, but I had them starting off 3-0, and then I even had them losing to Florida. So I had them going losing like the middle 4 games, winning a couple late with I think I did Arkansas and UMass, and then losing to end the season. So it's going to be a rough one for the Cowbells. Is how
Texas, Georgia, A&M, Texas, Georgia, and Texas A&M. Yeah, that's going to be probably 3 losses right there.
That's going to be tough.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Going through what we got next. Arkansas will get to Bama beat. So you finally hear somebody other than us.
Yeah, so I have them at 3-9. Yeah, I think it's going to be a brutal year for Arkansas, and it's probably going to lead to Sam Pittman losing his job. But basically, I had them winning all their kind of non-conference cupcake games there. Just hard to find wins for them in the SEC. Seems like they get all the best teams at home, which sounds good, but I don't think they're good enough to beat those teams at home. And then they get kind of the mediocre teams on the road. Potentially they could find a win there, but I see 3-9 for Arkansas, 4-8 at best.
And their win total for the year is 4.5, so he's taking the under. So
pretty accurate.
Yep. And Brian is basically copying what you said, 3-9 for it.
Yeah.
5-7 for Mississippi State, but I agreed. Raj, he had one less for Vandy than you did, though.
I could, it's Vandy.
All right, that gets us. And like I said, I'm going off of these are the odds to win the SEC in reverse order here. So,
what a surprise! It's me again. Yeah.
Did you just pick all the bottom teams? Like
I was just picking
pick's
teams
pretty
just
good,
based
though.
on the group chat. I was just selecting teams at random. So all right, so Kentucky finished 7-6 in 2023. I have them finishing 6-6 this season. I have them with wins against Southern Miss, the Ohio Bobcats, Vanderbilt. That should be a barn burner there. Florida, Murray State, and the Louisville game. I picked them to win, but I could see them losing the Louisville game. I think last year that game was like 17-12 or 17-13. But with that being said, I have them going 6-6 and somehow squeezing in and getting a bowl game.
Yeah, and Brian's got you 7-5, so he's got one more win.
Yeah.
Rod, I don't know how you even did this. How did you get South Carolina also? Did you just?
I was just picking teams. I know I was. I know everybody was eager to pick Vanderbilt, but I just went in and took them and just took it off everybody's plate.
Well, I appreciate that, but now you got South Carolina also. We're not even like
how does it? Oh my gosh!
You got three. You got three.
I don't even have time to drink my water. All right, South Carolina. They were 5-7 last year. I have them going 5-7 again. I could see them beating the Old Dominion, Akron. I actually picked them to beat Kentucky, Vanderbilt, of course, and Wofford. The other 7, I just don't see it happening. That South Carolina and Clemson game, depending on how Clemson and Cade Klubnik, take the whole season, I South Carolina might be able to pull that one off. But as of right now, beginning of the season, I have them going 5-7.
All right. Finally, we'll get Big Mike in here now. And I definitely have questions for this schedule. You got Florida.
Who's this? Oh, Lord.
Yeah. And it's going to make it sound even worse because it's been so long. We've done so many schedules. I know you're doing it from reverse order.
Yeah.
And this may be a hot take, but I say they go 2-10. 2-10, 3-9.
4.5.
Yeah, I maybe 3-9. The swing game to me would be UCF. I know Gus Malzahn's done some stuff down there. He's got a new quarterback from Arkansas, KJ Jefferson, who has played well in the SEC. So I think that may be a swing game. I think that maybe Gus Malzahn coaching to get back in the SEC to take over at the Florida position. Maybe this is his job interview, so he may have a little bit extra into it. But that's the main swing. The other wins I would have is Mississippi State and Samford. But yeah, that UCF is definitely a kind of a swing game. They've got the number 1 hardest schedule in the country. So I mean, is it really that big of a surprise? They play 4 unranked teams.
You're right, Brian.
As a preseason ranking. So I mean, I say they get at least 2 of those. I say they mine. I have them losing the other 2, but like I said, UCF is kind of a swing.
So Billy Napier's basically Napier's going to hang it up after the UCF game. Yeah, after that UCF game, he's just going to walk up and be like, "Look, I'm good. I'm not going through this brutal stretch." So
yeah, I don't think he makes the trip to Knoxville up in Tennessee.
No, I wouldn't.
You see the same thing, man. Napier's gone halfway through.
I think he's gone. The timing of it, I don't know, but
like he's packing right now.
Yeah, I mean, their schedule's ridiculous. I mean, if you want to feel better about Alabama's schedule, which I think is tough, just look at Florida's schedule.
Yeah. And you think of things like if they go to Mississippi State and lose, this is.
Oh, it just goes down.
And that is one of the games I haven't winning just because I think Mississippi State's just that bad with the whole new coach, everything. That is one of the wins I think they'll have.
Yeah. Yeah. We're sorry, Napier. We knew you not at all. All right, back to Bama with his number 1 pick, which he might have to explain why. Auburn.
Oh.
Yeah, they were my number 1 pick, honestly, just because I know the most about them. Versus the other SEC teams. But looking at their scheduling, it's a really strange schedule. They start the year with 5 straight home games. So, I think we could get to midseason. Everybody could be talking about, how
Stop
well.
looking at their schedule, Brian. It's scary.
I think we could get through, to midpoint of the season. Everybody's talking about how well Auburn and Hugh Freeze is doing just because, they have those 5 straight home games to start the season. But, then they have, 3 really tough road games and then they go back to the home stretch. So just a strange schedule. I've got them going likely 7-5. To me, the top end is 8-4. A couple swing games on their schedule to me is at Kentucky and Texas A&M at home. I don't know how good Kentucky's going to be, but it seems like that's a winnable game for Auburn. And then that Texas A&M game has been kind of a weird series where the road team has tended to dominate that series. Auburn will win in Kyle Field, and A&M wins in Auburn. So, that's a home game this year, and that would go a long way to them getting to 8-4 if they can win that game.
So you have Auburn beating Oklahoma, correct?
I have them losing to Oklahoma.
Losing? Okay.
I do think that's another potential swing game. You get Oklahoma at home, so that's a fortunate draw there. Oklahoma's probably a better team, but at Jordan-Hare, that's going to elevate Auburn a little bit.
Right.
Yep.
And you'll see some of my general budget who's going to be Auburn. I mean, we're not going to argue with you. I'm good with all that. So Brian's going to hate. He's going to definitely hate my my Oklahoma take. I'm sitting here looking at it and trying to figure out if I can give him a couple more wins before we get started, just so he won't be mad at me. But I think I put them at 6-6. So I had them starting off good with a 4-game win streak. I had them losing at Auburn, so kind of along with that, just because it's at Auburn, 5th game in. I'm not going to watch.
He's not going to watch, but he's going to type in the comments.
Brian, my apology for this was I'll buy the first round at the Oklahoma game. Okay. Then I think I had them losing to Texas as well, getting a win at South Carolina, losing at Ole Miss, then another win versus Maine, and then losing at Missouri versus Alabama at LSU. So, and for somebody who's not watching, he does have them at 9-3. So I have them a lot worse. I think there's some tough games in the middle of that schedule. So y'all about to find out. Okay, Brian. All right, that gets. Oh, do I have back-to-back teams? Who did this?
Now you know how I felt.
Missouri. All right. Mizzou, which I guess was like my number one pick, right? I had them starting off 4-0. I feel like all very winnable games. I only had them with 2 losses. I'll just start there. At Texas A&M and at Alabama. Just because I couldn't have them win every other game. But I feel like all the rest of them are winnable games for them. It looks like they miss a lot of the big boys. Like there's no Ole Miss, there's no Georgia, there's no Texas. So it feels like 10-2 is easily achievable. 9-3, I would think at worst for Mizzou. But at 10-2, like it just seems like when you actually start looking at a lot of SEC schedules, you could have a logjam at 10-2. And
oh gosh.
Yeah, I was reading a CBS article that had 5 teams, I think, at 10-2, and like a lot of tiebreakers to who makes the playoffs. So, yep, 10-2 would be fine with me. The Tennessee one is just kind of one of those. I'm just not really sure what you're getting from Tennessee with Mizzou, but yep, that is where I got them at. We're actually starting to get into a little bit more contenders, right? Please don't tell me this is my team also. We're skipping mine for a minute so I can stop talking for a minute. So we'll come back to
No. You never stop talking.
How that works.
Yes. Yeah. We'll go with TAMU. That's back to Bama beat.
So, with A&M being, the first-year head coach and Mike Elko, I'm not sure we know really what we're going to get from A&M, but as I went through their schedule, I felt like I was a little higher on A&M than I expected to be. So I've got them probably at 8-4, but maybe 9-3 if they can win, a swing game or two. I think Notre Dame, that game to start the season is going to be interesting. I'm not as high on Notre Dame as some other folks. I've seen some national pundits that are really high on them, but with that game at home, that's one I could see A&M stealing. But I've got them, losing at Florida, LSU at home, at South Carolina, and Texas at home. Those are the 4 games I have them losing. I think, they could easily win that, road game at Florida or South Carolina and pick up a win there, and then that would get them to 9-3. But I'm thinking likely 8-4 with a first-year head coach.
I like it. Raj, would you be okay with that?
Yeah.
Or do you care about that saying it? Or is it kind of like that? Well, you're coming up next, right?
No, I'm okay with that one.
Raj, We're going LSU.
LSU. All right. So they ended up 10-3 last year. I have them going 9-3 this year. The first game with USC, I said I went back and forth with that one. I know USC's got a new quarterback in Miller Moss. He threw 6 touchdowns in their bowl game last year. From what I'm hearing, he is he going to be the next Caleb Williams? No, but I think he's got the potential to do great things at USC. With that being said, I'm going to take LSU in the SEC defense to kind of prevail in this game. Nichols, I have them winning that game. I have them beating South Carolina. Their next loss really isn't going to be until I have them losing to Ole Miss. Again, I remember what happened last year was like 49-52, a high scoring game. I don't know if it's going to be this way this year. Obviously, LSU has a new quarterback. He's nowhere near where Jaden Daniels was, but we'll see what happens there. I think Jackson Dart pulls that one out for Ole Miss. The other losses are going to be, I think, A&M, and then of course with us Alabama. So I have LSU ending at 9-3. Then I guess the question comes in: will that be good enough to make a playoff? Based on what Herb said earlier, it's going to be a lot of 10-2 teams, and then obviously the SEC champion. So I think they missed the playoff, but they make it to a decent bowl game.
Yeah. Mike or Bama, are either one of y'all kind of higher on LSU, or you feel like that's kind of accurate about what's going to happen?
I'm kind of about the same.
About the same.
Same as well.
Sounds good. I feel like earlier on, like LSU was ranked higher or like thought of higher, and then all of a sudden it's kind of like falling off. All right, Big Mike, we're gonna get into what's your number one pick. So, Ole Miss.
Yeah. So kind of the opposite of Florida. They've got one of the easier schedules in the SEC. They only play 3 ranked teams. I think one of those is definitely a loss in number 1 Georgia, and then they've got 2 swing games to me in LSU and Oklahoma. I think they take one of those. In what I have written down, I have them losing to LSU and beating Oklahoma, but I could see that easily flip flopping. I think they go 10-2, maybe 9-3.
So this is Lane's best shot at a playoff. So maybe you have him still maybe just missing it, even with this schedule. You think?
I think he's got a really good shot at making it. I think he could be that third, maybe fourth team to sneak in. Obviously you've got Georgia, who I've always said that they're number 1. I think they're going to beat him, so I think they would get in ahead of them. To me, especially after last season, he went 11-1 last season and missed it with the expanded playoff. This is definitely the best season he's got. He's got Dart coming back, a lot of experience there at quarterback. Got some other good pieces that he's brought in on defense to improve the defense. I think it's going to be great, but I think if he can get it to an average, maybe right there, decent defense, I think he's got a good shot.
Yeah. Do you see Jackson Dart as a Heisman contender at all?
No, I think there's just too many guys that are better. I think he will be in the top third, maybe, of the SEC. He'll be top 5 in SEC, maybe, but not Heisman.
Yeah. I agree.
Well, I think that's going to bring us to. We're going to stick with Mike.
No, I get to go back to back. So obviously, as I mentioned, they've got to match up with number 1 Georgia as well. They only have a couple of ranked teams: Oklahoma, Texas A&M. And I will go ahead and apologize to Brian, but I actually have Texas going 12-0, beating Georgia and finishing number 1 in the SEC.
Wow. I just got to say, I don't see any undefeated teams, period. So that's not even just a shot at Texas. So, Bama, what do you think about that hot take? Or is it a hot take given their schedule?
Yeah. I do think they got a very favorable schedule. I also have them winning that Georgia game in Austin. But I would bet, this is just my opinion, on Texas dropping a game somewhere along the way. I just think, even though it is a favorable SEC schedule, I think, it's still a tougher schedule than what they faced in the Big 12 as far as a week in, week out basis. Texas was a team last year that struggled with some teams that they shouldn't have. They tend to play to the level of their competition. They've had some injury issues early in fall camp. So I kind of bet on them to drop a game, but it's certainly possible that they go undefeated with a nice little bone that the SEC schedulers threw them.
Yeah, I mean, especially when you look at it, we've gone through almost all the teams now, and at the very bottom, the bottom four, of those, you had Arkansas, you had Kentucky, you had Vanderbilt. Half their SEC schedule was in the bottom half of the conference. So, I did have Texas A&M circled, especially being late in the season, having a full season under their new coach. So that could be an iffy game as well, being at Texas A&M, them being so hyped. I could see maybe dropping that one, but that would probably be the biggest chance for them losing that I would see all season just because of the circumstances.
I like how we've had like 5 or 6 people in the comments, and Mike is trying to can I say piss off? Mom and Dad aren't watching. He's trying to make enemies of at least like 4 of them with Georgia, Michigan, and Oklahoma. Like, Mike, we need the viewership. Like, can you help us out, please? So,
look, I'll take back. You mentioned the wrestling show. One of the famous promoters back in wrestling says controversy creates cash. So, I mean, I'm just trying to do my job as a heel here.
Well, you were doing a great job.
Oh, I like that play on words. Okay.
I think they're kind of against you right now, but I like it, Mike. Good hot take for me.
I also, if you notice, I strategically picked my teams. None of the 3 of my teams actually played Alabama. So I actually am picking nobody against Alabama. It was very strategic.
Oh, right.
Pretty smart.
Mike,
pretty smart.
You're definitely smarter than the rest of us. What is this crappy looking schedule? I apologize to the Georgia fans.
Hey, one last comment on Texas. I saw a comment pop up, questioning that what are they going to, do to replace Sweat and Murphy on the defensive line. I mean, I think that's a legit question with Texas. They lost Bo Davis in the offseason. He moves on to LSU to be the D-line coach there. I think really highly of Bo Davis, one of the best D-line coaches in the country. So, that was a big part of their success last year. So they're filling a big hole there.
Yeah. And the Rod's theorem about Texas is they always drop a game that they're not supposed to. So I'm sure he would.
Every year.
All right, this is a comment from earlier about it. The toughest schedule on paper, any of the national title contenders. Bama Beat, what you got for us?
So I've got Georgia finishing 11-1 with the loss in Austin to Texas. As I went through their schedule, to me there were only 3 games I felt like Georgia potentially has the chance to lose, and that's at Bama, at Texas, and at Ole Miss. Really don't like that matchup for Ole Miss. To me, Georgia just don't match up favorably with Georgia's style of play. So I've got them beating Alabama and Tuscaloosa just because of where that game falls early in the season. So I think they end up taking 2 of those 3 and finishing 11-1.
This man calls himself Bama Beat, and so here's the funny thing when you do Alabama schedules, and you'll probably see this next week. I always say Alabama 10-2, but if you ask me to pick the 2 losses, I'm not going to. So I'm just saying this is what I think the record ends up. So any other thoughts with Georgia, national title contender, leading in the SEC as far as odds as well? Other 2 guys, thoughts on Georgia?
Is there any chance that Clemson makes the first game competitive?
I'd say no.
No. Okay. And just to get Randy back, I do think it will very well be a rematch in the SEC championship game between Georgia and Texas. Depending on how the rest of the schedule plays out, I think it's a very big possibility. So it's very easily that you guys could split the season series. So I know that doesn't help with Brian, but at least that gives Randy a little bit of good graces. So
we can't help Brian at this point. Brian's just doing his own thing.
And Brian is not Brian and JT, one of our Bama guys, have both predicted Georgia lost to Clemson. I just don't see it. So sorry.
No, I don't see it happening.
So
that's why I said the word competitive for that first game. I mean, I know Georgia's going to win, but is there any chance that Clemson just keeps it close at all? I mean, it might maybe after the first quarter, but after that, I think Georgia's just going to blow them away. So
yeah. I just don't see it. I feel like Georgia's one of those most prepared teams, like the start of season. You see a lot of sloppy football at the beginning of the year from other teams. I just don't feel like you see it from Georgia. Yeah. Were you about to say, Bama? I'm sorry.
And my hope for Clemson in that game would be that they can keep it competitive for a half. Yeah, I just feel like Georgia's depth is going to grind down Clemson in the second half, and Clemson doesn't quite have the dudes on the lines that they used to have.
Yeah.
Offensive line's been an issue for a couple of years now, and until Kate Klubnik, shows me that he's elevated his play, then I'm not really a believer.
Yep. All right, and I agree with that. Just so I don't get out of my responsibilities, I had them at 8-4. I think for Tennessee, losing to NC State, surprisingly, at Oklahoma, Alabama, and Georgia. So, and
why the NC State loss? Just out of curiosity.
Just because I don't like Tennessee, and I wanted them to have a early loss that nobody expected. So I was like, here you go. So didn't even bother looking up anything about NC State. Don't care. I'd love it if they were 8-4 instead of 9-3. I think Brian's probably more accurate with 9-3, but I just wanted to throw him in one. And Brian, you're practically on the show right now. It's like we were just trying to get our time right. So difference with the A's, M's, and the PMs and stuff like that. So all right, Mike, we're gonna end outside the SEC, and then we're gonna get some predictions from everybody. So Colorado.
Well, I mean, it's yep, and it's very apropos, I guess is the word I'll use, that we are talking about title contenders, that we go to Colorado, because Coach Prime in year 2 will make a bowl game. They're not going to make the playoffs. I've got to go. As much as I love Coach Prime and the team, I do think they will be very much improved from last year. It's going to be hard not to be with the changes they made on the offensive defensive line. They've got 9 new offensive linemen and 9 new defensive linemen. Plus you have, a 5-star offensive lineman coming in. That was their main focus on the offseason. They bring some of the big pieces, in the skill positions back. But again, I just don't think they're there. They don't have the depth to run a whole season and compete with a playoff team. I say 7-5, 6-6. A couple of swing games. Again, that pesky UCF team with Gus Malzahn trying to get back in the SEC. He's trying to make statements. I have them winning that game, but I do think it could go either way because that's also right around the Florida game. So maybe where there's a little bit of a distraction there with Florida, right around that same time period. Yeah, I mean, I think they do make great strides. At least double their win total and make a bowl game. But there's as much as hype as I put on them, to trying to be funny. There's no way they're making the playoffs.
So question, Mike, just out of curiosity, if everything goes the way Colorado wants it to this year, and then Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders have a good season, they go to NFL, how much longer do you see Deion there at Colorado after this season?
I mean, that's the question, right? Is he going to stay when his quote unquote all his kids are gone? You've got Bo Sanders leaving, and Hunter, who he's kind of adopted as his own kid. I think he may stay for a couple of years. If somehow it doesn't start to turn and they don't start winning, I could see him either jumping to maybe going back down to a lower team where he can compete easier. And which is hard for me to say because when he first took it, you guys know, I said, at one point he may be in the SEC, talked about, him potentially, in my eyes, could have, at least talked about the Auburn job when it came open. But after seeing the last season and all the turnover and all that, I don't know how much longer he lasts, maybe a couple seasons.
Yeah, I asked that because obviously we all think that the Florida job will be open very, very soon. Even though he went to Florida State, I wonder if they'll throw his name in there. That would be interesting, but only time will tell.
Yep. All right, starting with Raj, we'll let Bama beat. Raj, SEC title picks.
I'm going to go with Alabama and Texas.
Okay. Mike?
I'm going to go with Alabama and Texas.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of gave mine away a little earlier. I think it's going to be Texas and Georgia in a rematch.
Bama?
I've got 11-1 Georgia versus 11-1 Texas, and Georgia wins the SEC championship.
Got it. I like it. All right, because we're at the end of the hour, we're only giving you guys one question apiece, and you will go peacefully into the night. Plus, you guys have both been on here so many times, we probably exhausted all the questions that we really want to ask. I know y'all be humble, but it's probably Bama versus Georgia. I would just never predict it. I would love it and love to see it, but I would never predict it. And I do think Georgia's going to be there in some way or form. So it's really how the other teams go.
One quick comment on that. I mean, honestly, if Alabama, finishes 10-2, and I think that puts them in a playoff spot, I don't know that it's really that advantageage to go to the SEC championship game.
It really is.
I mean,
unless
you
you're
get
going to win it and get the bye. That's the only thing.
Well, here's the thing: you get the bye, but you're effectively losing that bye because you played an extra game in the conference championship game. Now I realize it's you're in the college football playoff, and
true.
Those games aren't equal, but you're essentially still playing that game.
No, you're right. I agree with that. So I think conference championships are kind of like definitely losing their luster with the 12-game playoff for sure. So. All right, we'll start with Mike. We'll end with Bama. Mike, we are playing work, play, live, ditch. Okay? And you
yes, sir.
Already.
Oh no, it's not. This isn't going to be a personal one. No, nobody's feelings will be hurt on this one. Okay? We're going to go with Kevin Owens, Coach DeBoer, Tua, and Deion Sanders.
Wow, that's a wide mixture of personalities.
I know. Where did that come from?
Did I stump?
I want to live next to Coach DeBoer. Just because I think I could, pick his brain while we're out, in between, cutting the grass, weed eating, stuff like that. We can sit there and talk football. I could pick his brain. I want to. You got to play with Deion. I mean, there's no way you can't pick that. I mean, with that personality, all the money, all the bling, you've got to play with Deion. I would work. Gosh, as bad as it is, I would work with Kevin Owens just because I've always wanted to be a professional wrestler. Yeah, it's always kind of been, I've never been athletic enough, but I've always wanted to be like a manager or in some way, in professional wrestling. That's why I talk about it a lot. That's why I have the show. So I would definitely say I'd have to work with Kevin Owens just so I could be in that atmosphere, in that locker room. And unfortunately, as much as it pains me to say, that means I've got to ditch Tua.
Oh gosh!
I mean, just by process. Look, would you and Herb, Raj, you're the other Dolphins fan. Would you rather go out and hang out with Deion or with Tua? Be honest.
I'd rather hang out with Tua. Deion talks too much. He's just gonna keep talking and talking and talking. And I don't know how his foot's gonna be feeling. Yeah. I don't know if I'm gonna have to help carry him around. I don't know if he's gonna need the little scooter thing. I don't want to have to deal with all that. So I'm gonna hang out with Tua. Tua just got paid too, so. Tua's gonna buy the drinks. He'll take care of all that.
Fair enough. All right, Bama. Work, play, live, ditch. I think is the one we hadn't given you before. So that's when that person calls you to go out on Friday night. You let their call go to voicemail. All right, the other ones you've done with us: work, play, live. SEC Coaches Edition. Kirby Smart, Brian Kelly, Lane Kiffin, Sark.
Well, I'm ditching Brian Kelly. Not a Brian Kelly fan. Let's see, work, play, live. I'll work with Kirby, just because I'd love to pick his mind defensively. Play. Sark and Kiffin. You could play with either of them and probably have a good time. I feel like Kiffin in his current state would be more entertaining than Sark. Sark's, mellowed out a little bit. So I'll play with Kiffin and live with Sark.
There you go. Raj, since you're just sitting there doing nothing, I've got one for you before we go.
Okay.
All right. Work, play, live. Herb.
Okay.
Bama. Big Mike. And Brian.
Okay. So is this work, play, live, ditch?
Yes.
I'm ditching you. I'm tired of you. Been around you for 43 years. You're getting the easy ditch. I can only take so much of her, man. So I'm gonna work with Bama Beat. I think I can really get a nice little pay raise working with Bama Beat. Very, very knowledgeable, very, very astute, very, very professional. Let's see. I'm gonna live next to Big Mike. We're gonna have some nice chats, talk about the lawn, talk about sports. We can watch some games together. I can go to his house, vice versa. And I'm gonna hang out with Brian. Brian's been in the chat all night. Seems like he's got a lot of free time. So I'm gonna hang out with Brian. Me and Brian are going out for the night in town. But yeah, the ditch was easy. Sorry, man.
Now you got a voicemail.
I hope Mom's watching.
And true to form, he actually did ditch your phone call. So I mean, art imitates life. You called him and he didn't answer. So I mean there it is.
So my dog could crap. I was like, geez. Oh, for Sark.
Oh wow.
Bama, man, we missed you, man. We appreciate you hopping back in. You got anything coming up? Anything we look out for? Any wild parties you're throwing before the season gets started?
No, just counting down the days. I've learned to, I'm always in great anticipation of the season starting, but I've learned to enjoy the off season more because I do think, this is one of the, funnest times of year, the anticipation of the season coming. Yeah. Super excited about this season, especially, always excited for a new season to start, but all the unknowns, new coaching staff, the game day experience may be a little different, we'll see, but just super excited about the season. You can follow me at the Bama Beat on X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it these days. We'll be tweeting throughout the season, and just excited for everything that's going to be happening.
Sounds good. Big Mike, you got a couple things coming up there, right, sir?
Yeah, one or two. Obviously, you can catch me at _Big Mike 27 on all socials. I am the host of the Run In podcast, which is right now doing some top 5 stuff for wrestling. We are working on a weekly wrestling show that I'm talking to a few people about scheduling everything, so I don't have anything nailed down, but still stay tuned for top 5 episodes. We've got the Thursday night tag team every Thursday night, 9, 8 Central, on the They Call Me Mr. U network. You can also see that at the Run In as well. And I'm going to be with you guys a lot. You guys are going to be seeing me a whole lot more over the next few months. So, look forward to that.
Looking forward to it.
Guys, we appreciate y'all.
We appreciate it.
We even got to talk some Bama on here, so that was a lot of fun. What we said next week, JB and Stephen M will be on here as well. Talk a little bit more Bama, and then, man, I'm excited for the season, and we'll definitely
can't wait.
Back on, check it in. So for Herb and Raj, well, you know what? Just Herb. Since I've been ditched a little bit too much, just Herb. I just appreciate all you guys. Y'all have a wonderful night, and as always,
appreciate it, guys. Roll Tide.